even your sex life, you should communicate, because you can't just assume like, oh, my husband should know how to please me. You have to tell him what you want, where you want the pleasing to come from. Communicate everything. Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Laju. If you are new here, you are highly welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. Thank you for sticking with me. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. As you all know, we're in the season of love, so I decided to wear red to keep up with the theme of the season. A couple of weeks ago, my husband and I celebrated our 5th year anniversary. Yes, I can't believe it too. Like, I am 5 years old in marriage. It feels like yesterday that we got married, and I'm really grateful for the years. I'm grateful for the days and the weeks that have gone by. And I sat down to think about it, like, what are the things that I've learned in 5 years of marriage? So I have compressed it into 5 things. Obviously, I've learned more than 5 things in 5 years of marriage, but I've tried to squeeze it all into 5 broad topics, and I thought to share today. This is not just to do the talk or for YouTube's sake, but I really want to, share my lessons and, some mistakes that I've made in 5 years of marriage, and hopefully this can be a lesson for someone else. So let's get right into today's video. I do like to use acronyms a lot, especially when I read or when I'm trying to remember things. So today I have compressed my points into 4 C's and 1 H. I'll start with number 1. However, I should also mention that I have a bonus tip at the end, so you want to watch to the end to hear what the bonus tip is. So let's get started. The first lesson I believe I learned in marriage is this: your happiness is your responsibility. Your happiness is your responsibility. I'll say that one more time. Your happiness is your responsibility. Why am I emphasizing on this? Now, personally, I didn't understand this until I was married, like 2-3 years into marriage. I just assumed it was my husband's responsibility to make me happy, and I was completely wrong. Yes, there were days when I'll be sad, mopey, and I just felt like he should do something to make me happy, but it was no responsibility of his. How can you give somebody else the responsibility to make you happy? I know that the picture the world paints is like, oh, when you get married, you'll be happy and all that, but it's a lie. The truth is, if you're not happy as a single, then you would never be happy even when you are married. You need to work on yourself and find what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy, even in marriage. Don't wait for your partner to do it. Like, that is so much responsibility to place on one person. It just felt lame. It felt like a lame excuse. I just expected him to do things, to always be there and make me smile. But I found out that if I wanted to keep smiling, I had to keep doing things that made me happy. I didn't have to depend on him for that. And I'm saying this as a personal experience because, especially when, life gets busy and everything, you have to personally, take care of yourself and make yourself happy, and not wait for someone to do things to make you happy. When you're dating and they do those sweet things and you're so happy, but forget that. You have to work on yourself and find the things that make you happy. So one of the things that personally I found made me happy, that, I had to go back to my source. I had to, find the source of my joy, and the first source of my joy is God. So, fellowshipping with God, worshiping God, those things make me happy. They make me joyful. And then I found other things, my hobbies, the things I used to do before I ever became a Mrs., the things that really brought happiness to me. So you need to find your happiness. Even when you get married, not let go of your happiness. If you enjoy spending time with your friends, as a lady, please go ahead and spend time, create time. I know you can't always hang out like you used to, but let's be honest, some of these men, they still find time to hang out with their friends. They don't lose their friends because of marriage, some of them anyway. And guys do things that make them happy. We'll wake up in the morning, we'll get on with our day, and I'll hear my husband saying things like, oh, Roger Federer is playing today, or Rashford. Those are the things that make him happy. And he wasn't going to give them up because he was married. He loved soccer, he loved tennis, and he still kept doing these things. But I became a Mrs., and suddenly I wasn't doing the things I wanted to do anymore because I was married. So I had to go back to the things that made me happy. I went back to my drawing board. What makes me happy? Like, what do I enjoy doing? And I started enjoying those things again. I started trying to create time for those things, because if you don't, you will just end up being miserable and tired and burnt out faster than you can imagine, faster than a candle wick. So that's number 1 point. The second lesson I learned in 5 years of marriage is this: choice. I keep repeating them. Now, People say that, love doesn't keep a marriage and all that, but one of the things I've even realized it, love is a lot of things. The Bible says love is patient, love is kind, love does so many things. So if you're talking about patience, you need to have patience, you need to have trust, you need to have a lot of these things in marriage. And I like to look at all of them under the canopy of love. So one of the things I realized is love itself is not a feeling. When you are dating or you are courting, you are thinking like, oh, my heart is racing and all those things. But I soon found out that that's not what keeps a marriage, because at the end of the day, love is a choice. Before you get married and after you get married, you choose to love this person. Love is a choice because you are choosing to love this person irrespective of what life brings, irrespective of what happens to them, irrespective of anything. So you are choosing to say, okay, I choose to love you through the ups, through the downs, because trust me, marriage will throw a lot at you. Marriage will test you. Marriage will test everything that you stand for. Marriage will test your faith. It will test your relationship with God. It will test your friendships. It will test everything. It will test your career, your finances. Marriage will test you. So you have to choose that, okay, we are going to make this marriage work. You have to decide that we are making this work. I choose to love you. I choose to forgive you. Forgiveness in marriage is a choice. You have to choose to forgive. One of the things that I have learned to do is I forgive my husband even before he upsets me. So like I have laid it in my heart that no matter what my husband does, I'm going to forgive him, no matter how painful it is. And I know some people will say, oh, maybe he has not done the worst. I pray he doesn't do the worst. Amen. But right now, I've chosen to forgive him. So even when we have those little quarrels that I get so upset about, I just remember that, you know what, I don't want this to steal my joy. I don't want this to steal my peace. Those things matter to me. I hate conflict. Like, I like being happy and joyful. And when things trouble my soul, I don't like it, especially when it has to do with my spouse. So I always go back, to the place of love. That's why I choose love. I choose forgiveness above everything else. I'm not perfect, trust me. Some of these things are hard. Some days I want to be angry, angry. But I've chosen to forgive. And we've talked about these things like we won't let the sun go down on our anger and all those kind of things. And there are days that it happens and I'm like, we can do better. So we choose to forgive each other. We choose to love each other through the seasons of life, basically, because you just have to choose what you want. You have to choose where you want to stand and where you want to belong, because life can throw curveballs at you. And if you have not made this decision beforehand, when it happens, you just find yourself falling away and falling out of love. There are days I don't like my husband, but I've chosen to love him, even if I don't like him that moment, even if he's annoying me. I've chosen to love him and I've chosen him. So yeah, that's my second lesson. The third lesson is comparison. Remember I said that I have 1 H and 4 C's and a bonus point. So this is my second C. I'm trying to do this so I don't forget my point. So comparison is the thief of joy. I heard this way back in my school days and I just kept it in my head. Like, it's so true. Do not compare. In marriage, never compare. Like, never, ever. Do not compare your marriage with somebody else's marriage. It's never the same. Do not compare your partner. Do not compare your husband. Do not compare your wife. It is one of the biggest mistakes that you can ever make. It's literally steals life out of your marriage, because you will always feel less than enough. You would always feel lacking when you compare. There would always be someone finer than your husband or your wife. There would always be someone richer. There would always be someone doing better than you guys. So do not compare. When you compare, you stop seeing what you have. You start seeing what other people have. So I never compare in my marriage. The few times that I found myself comparing, I've realized that I haven't gained anything. It only made me miserable. It only made me feel like I was not enough. Meanwhile, I am enough. My marriage is enough. We are where we are meant to be. Yes, we can be better. But yes, you can have models. You can say, oh, I want our marriage to be like these people. But you don't put that pressure on yourself to start comparing and pushing yourselves. Your husband is who he is. Never compare. Like, a lot of people, a lot of ladies think, oh, when I get married, maybe my husband, I can change him. You can't change anybody. So if you don't want him, then don't go into it. If it's a deal breaker, then don't bother. But if you know that, oh, okay, this is not a deal breaker and I can live with this, but never go into marriage thinking I can change him. That's one of the biggest mistakes we make. And then if he doesn't change, you start comparing. Like, excuse me, you're not the Holy Spirit. You cannot change anybody. Yes, you can pray for him, but don't compare. Like, seriously, don't compare. It is one of the life lessons I've learned. I don't compare. This is enough for me. I am content and I'm grateful. I love my husband and I'm grateful for who he is, and I'm not comparing him. Yes, those things come, you think, oh, this, oh, he could have done this, he could have done that, but I just get them out of my head, because if you dwell on it, it begins to suck everything else, and then you don't realize how much, your husband or wife, she's already amazing the way she is. She may not have those skills that other person has. She may not be able to do those things. Or your husband, you may not have that passion like that other man. He may not be so ambitious, but still is your husband. Love him for who he is, and just be grateful for who he is. Don't compare and start, pushing unnecessarily. It just doesn't help any marriage, and if you want to do these things, there are ways to go about it. If I want my husband to do something, I don't go from a place of comparing and say, this person has, these people have bought. It doesn't help, Rather, go and pray about it, and then God will give you the wisdom on how to go about these things and mention these things in a way that no one is hurt or feeling like they are being talked down to. So it's so important. Wisdom is key in marriage. Wisdom is so key. So the next one is, my next C is communicate. Yes, communicate. It is so important to communicate in marriage. Like, oh my God, marriage is a beautiful thing. Marriage is a beautiful experience. Like, I know not everybody is going to get married and all, but for those that decide to, marriage is beautiful. And like they say, when plane crashes happen, we only hear about the plane crashes that happen. We never hear about the flights that actually land. A lot of marriages are landing well, but when there's a broken marriage, everybody's talking about it. Oh, marriage is so hard. It's just like plane crash, really, because you never hear about all the flights that go every day, but let one plane crash, everybody's talking about it. So that's how marriage is. There are so many beautiful marriages out there, and if you desire that, pray to God and work on yourself, you will get it. So yes, it is important to communicate. I have so much I want to say. I hope I remember, but this communication part is so key, because learning to communicate in different ways. Now, you have things you want to say and you don't express yourself. You just assume. Assumption is a terrible thing. Like, a lot of people assume their husbands can, read their mind. They can't read your mind. You have to tell him what you want. Communicate. From things you want him to help you do something, ask, communicate. Even your sex life, you should communicate, because you can't just assume like, oh, my husband should know how to please me. You have to tell him what you want. Where you want the pleasing to come from. Communicate everything, so I know that sometimes it's hard, but I think that's one of the things in marriage. You become vulnerable to each other, you become transparent, and I believe that that's the whole point of marriage, because the marriage, I compare the marriage to the church. In terms of, we are the bride of Christ. That's what I mean. So basically, Jesus is the bridegroom and we are the bride. So, there should be that relationship where there is no mask, there is no fakeness, there is no, everything is open. We can be open and real with each other. And I think that's the beauty of marriage, where we can communicate. And another thing about being able to communicate is you should be able to communicate and speak each other's love languages to each other. And I think that is something that I'm still working on personally, because my love language is, acts of service. There are 5, main love languages. And I know that acts of service is the top on my list these days. I really appreciate when my husband does those little things, So, and I know one of his major love language is actually physical touch. Men, they like, my husband, I can't speak for all men, but my husband likes, to be touched, to be cuddled and all those kind of things. And I'm not the touchy kind of person. So I'm learning to communicate that. And reach out more, stroke him more. But the thing that with Nigerian men, once you touch them, they're like, oh, are you ready? And I'm like, I'm just touching you. It doesn't have to be that deep. But excuse me. But yeah, communicating each other's love languages is so important, because you find spouses saying, you just find that there's this lack of communication in terms of their love language. You need to know what makes you, what he or she does that makes you happy. So when they do this thing, they really eat the spot. There are some women that, they want acts of service, words of affirmation, but the husband is buying gifts every day, and the husband is feeling like, oh, I give you everything you want, and the woman is saying, no, you don't love me anymore. And he's like, what else do you want? I buy you gifts, I still buy you. And because our love language is not the gifts. Like, it's not about, you can buy all the gifts in the world, but maybe she just wants you to be there with her, For me, I do enjoy quality time with my husband, I do enjoy spending time with him. So rather than buying me all those gifts, let's go out, let's travel together, let's spend time, let's do fun things together. I do enjoy those moments more than, receiving any gift. I do like gifts, don't get me wrong. But, those people are different. So you need to know what you do that your spouse would appreciate, you know. Talking about sex, for instance, you know, it's beyond the act itself. You know, there's a lot more that goes into it, especially for women. You know, men just need to see and they are ready. You know, just open it up and men are ready like instantly. But women, we need more. It's, for me, it's a mental process. You know, you have to, it's a process. Basically, you have to prepare right from the morning. You are like, okay, it's going down today one way or the other. But it's in the little things. It's not just in the act itself. Some of these movies and things we watch, they make it look like, oh, instantly it happens. But there's a lot more process to it, I believe, for most women than just the instant gratification. So it's a mental thing. You have to be communicating each other's love language before you get to the main deal. So if it's physical touch, you know, you're already touching and stroking, you know, those little things. Like for me, I do enjoy when my husband comes around to, you know, those mornings that he just goes down to do the dishes without being asked. I'm like, oh, bless you, bless you. Or the moment he stays with my daughter and he just takes care of her so that I can have some personal time, me time. I see those things and it just touches me like, oh God, you know, it's like, yeah, it's hitting the right spot. It's a mental thing because I'm not feeling tired and even, you know, overwhelmed. Because if you're tired and overwhelmed and somebody else comes and says, oh, you're like, oh, please, okay, let's just do. But the point is, if you're communicating each other's love language, you know, daily and regularly, I don't think your sex life would even be better. Because if it's words of affirmation, you know, my husband does like when I speak words of affirmation to him, because I notice that when I say things that are not very nice, it really gets to him. And I'm thinking, what did I say? But I'm learning to, you know, say those words of affirmation to actually tell him, you know, I believe in you. I know you can do this. I know you've got it. And those things, and just speak these words of affirmation and encouragement to him. And I see that it helps him a lot. So I'm understanding that it's his love language also. So communicate each other's love language. Find out what your wife really likes, you know, what she enjoys. If it's gifts, you know, buy her those little, you don't have to spend a lot. Those little gifts, just mindful gifts, you know, just thoughtful gifts rather. Just come home with a little gift, a rose, something nice, you know. And for someone, if it is a love language, you are eating the right spot, I believe. So that's one of the lessons I've learned. I'm trying to compress everything into my acronyms. The last one is C for change. Change in marriage. Now, in marriage, I kind of broke this into two. The first part is be ready for change in marriage. Change does happen in marriage, and change happens through different things. It could be a financial change. It could be a change in location. Like my family and I, we moved abroad, and it's a completely different setting. So always be prepared for change in marriage. You never know. Don't be flexible. Be ready to adapt to whatever change occurs. One major change that occurs in many marriages, in most marriage, is children. Children, they are a major change. When children come, they change everything, and I mean everything. So you need to be ready to accept this change and adapt to it, because it can rock your boat. It can change your world completely. So change does occur in marriage, and I've learned that, like, when we got married, the first year was okay. I can't remember all the details, but it went by really fast. But it was blissful. It was peaceful. We had some rocky moments and everything. And then, you know, as life went on, I realized that it will not always be like the first year of marriage. Change will occur, change will come. But I'm learning to adapt, and whatever lessons this change brings, you know, pick the lessons and build on from there. So it's important to be prepared for change in marriage. You know, we don't pray for them, but they happen. It could be a loss of a loved one. Anything could happen. But going back to kids, always remember that no matter what change marriage or life throws at you, always prioritize your marriage. Prioritize your marriage. And I think a lot of us, especially women, we make this mistake because we're like, oh, maybe my husband is not up to par. It's not the kind of man I thought he would be. And so we start prioritizing our children above our husbands. And yeah, you know, it's like, oh, the children are important. But the truth is, the children will leave. They will marry. They will move on with their lives. And then it's just you two. So it's important to prioritize your marriage. And I believe that when the Bible said, you know, what God has put together, let no man put asunder, it meant children also. Do not let your children put your marriage asunder. Do not let changes that happen in life put your marriage asunder. So it's so important to say, guy, babe, whatever it is, it's me and you, you know, till the end of the earth, or whatever, however you communicate. But, you know, set it in your heart that we can make this work. We are going to make this work. Whatever change or whatever happens, we're going to make it work. So I think that's my fifth lesson that I've learned in 5 years, and they have helped me so far. Some of these things I didn't learn them in the first year, I learned them along the way, because marriage is something that everybody expects you to figure it out. Nobody gives you a blueprint for marriage. You just have to work it out yourself, and every marriage is different. It's so important not to compare. I'm repeating, it's never compare your marriage, your circumstance with others. Just be grateful for where you are at and work and try to improve it. So yeah, that's it for the 5 points. My bonus tip, which is very important, actually, it is like the number one tip, but it is I don't want to call it the icing on the cake, because I think it's the whole cake. It's the importance of God in your marriage. One of my favorite scriptures when it comes to marriage is, a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And I believe this, because you and your husband cannot figure it out yourself. But if you look to God as your source, and let him be your role model, your director, let him be the third cord, or rather the first cord in your home. It's God, and then my husband and I. So we are like this, and we cannot be easily broken. If you can come together to pray often, I would advise that. It's so important, so be able to talk to God together, open your heart, fellowship with God together. Those are one of my favorite moments, and my husband knows it. He knows I enjoy when we come together to pray, to God, and just be who we are to God. But we still have our individual prayer lives. But yeah, coming together as a couple is so important. Just coming to honor God together as a couple. It is important that you prioritize prayer in your marriage, because really that's the foundation right from the beginning, even before you get married. Because you cannot do it alone. You can't have it figured out. You have to pray. This bonus tip is like the it's like the overall tip. So it's important to pray. And God bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. That's a summary of the 5 things I've learned in 5 years of marriage. I hope you found it useful. Please don't forget to like my video and subscribe to my channel. Bye.